go on and move on over to the NBA with a check-in on a big game from Tuesday. The Atlanta Hawks picked up their 9th win of the season over the Los Angeles Clippers behind a 38-point night from Trae Young. The Clippers were on a 7-game winning streak coming in, but shorthanded thanks to COVID protocols keeping Kawhi and Paul George out. In their absence, Reggie Jackson and Serge Ibaka led the team to a halftime lead. However, Young blew the doors off the game in the second half, and Atlanta didn't really look back. So, Drink, how good is this Hawks team, and can we really learn much about the Clippers supporting cast in this game?
Yes, that's if you want. I think that's what we learned the most about. So this is a very, very on point question, I think, because these are the two things that I felt like we did learn from this. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't get a true depiction of the Clippers without their two best players, right? So you kind of got to look at the guys that had to elevate what they was doing to play the game. And to be honest, I thought the Clippers supporting cast was good. I'm gonna be real with you. Without your two stars, the game was competitive. It wasn't like the Hawks just ran away with it. So I think this game should have built some confidence in those other guys if they was lacking confidence. But you know the guys, Lou. I think the guy that I paid attention the most for the Clippers in this more expanded role was Luke Kennard, because Luke Kennard is the first guy to come off the bench for the Clippers. They gave him this fat contract, and everybody was like, "Who?" Like the dude from Duke. Like we forgot he was drafted by the Pistons. Like so, it was a lot of like pushback, and rightfully so, because honestly, who the hell is Luke Kennard, right? So when I was watching to see what do they see in this guy to make them want to like give him this contract or whatnot, and I was, from a standpoint of him stepping up and doing more, I like what I seen. That bench that we don't talk about as much because it's not as vaunted as the bench for the Clippers last year. But listen, Jackson, I'm not a big fan of Jackson or Ibaka, but I think the bench did enough. To answer the question, I was impressed. I thought the bench was good. Now, can you put this together when your two stars come together? You should be fine. You should, be able to make it. This is a championship level team, I think. Just keep it going, keep it moving. Now, to me, this game was about the Hawks. I really like what I seen from the Hawks. Were they playing a championship level Clippers team? No. But these are the Hawks we're talking about. The Atlanta Hawks. Listen, we ain't talked about this team since George Teague and Al Horford and Paul Millsap and that whole crew. Budenholzer, when we didn't even know who Budenholzer was, but he was just a guy from the Spurs staff. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, you fast forward to now, we didn't know if this team would ever get back to, let's say, the glory days or the days where they was playoff contenders and the Eastern Conference contenders and whatnot. I'm impressed with this team. I'm impressed with management, first and foremost. I think this team has done right by their star player or their two star players, if you want to add in Collins, because, they say they both, 1A, 1B, whatever. But either way, this team is built pretty damn good, if I must say so myself. I like what they got. Now, I like where they're going. I didn't say this team is ready for a motivated Bucks, a motivated Celtics, or the 76ers. Could they play with those teams? Probably. But if you give me a 7-game series, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm taking the Hawks. You know what I'm saying? But I do like the upward trajectory of this team. I think they're doing right by Trae Young. Look at these pieces, man. I was watching Clint Capella, and I was like, I don't understand for the life of me why the Rockets would trade him away to play this small ball bull crap. When like this dude is a walking bucket, if you handle the ball right with James Harden or Westbrook, whatever, this guy's a walking bucket. I think Trae Young used him the right way. I like what he brings. And then let's talk about Hunter. I seen what he was doing. He had some impressive offensive numbers, but I was more impressed with his defense, his wing defense. Like the guy's pretty long. Hold on, Jay. Ain't that your boy from Virginia?
It is.
Okay, so shouts out to Virginia. So, like, I was impressed with his defense. I like what he do on the wings, in the corners. He make it tough for those guys. I was a fan of that. And then Collins. Collins didn't go off last night, but he is a cornerstone of that team just as well as Trae Young. I like how they, it was maybe a couple of weeks ago where he got into it with Trey Young, and I don't know what happened, but I think he said Trey Young, like, he holds the ball too long or he shoots the ball too much or something along that line. And Collins, him and Young sat down, they talked about it, they worked it out. It wasn't no, I don't want to be here, I want to trade type deal. It's like, listen, man, you ain't got to hold the ball all the time. Like, it's other people on this team that can do some things. Clearly, Trey Young listened, because since that altercation, he seems to be passing the ball better. He seems not to be holding the ball. Last night, I didn't notice him holding the ball. Actually, I see him driving the ball to the rim more than actually just shooting up bad shots. Did I say bad shots? Let's talk about bad shots for a minute. Trey Young, I was happy to see the maturity, the growth of his game last night. I'm gonna be honest. This is the first time I actually stopped and watched the Hawks all season. So when I seen him last night, I said, dang, man, he has grown up. He's not just jacking it up from the half court line. He's not just, give me the ball, let me shoot it. Like, he was playing some efficient point guard basketball last night. And any Atlanta Hawk fan that watched them last night and don't think this team is on the rise, you're kidding yourself. This is a good ball team. I think they will make the playoffs. Maybe win, if anything, win a series, but that's about it. But I was impressed. I thought it said a lot about the Hawks. They're coming, they're growing, a lot of good things. And I think the Clippers are fine. The Clippers are fine without they was fine last night without their two stars. Yes, they lost. That's cool. But I left that game last night thinking both of these teams are in a good situation right now. Let's see how it matures.
I think for the Hawks, this is, when you look at a team comes in shorthanded, no Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard. What? Oh God, we got a funny man in the corner talking about. Oh, they didn't have Patrick Beverly either. Yeah, good job. You suckered me into talking about Patrick Beverly. But the Hawks, on their home court, got a really good team out west, playing shorthanded, and they did what they had to do, and they did what they should do. Protecting their home floor, and coming away with the win. And that's really all you can ask from a team in this situation. And I think if you ask me what I think of the Hawks right now, I would say probably similar to what Drink just laid out for us. I think they're maybe a lower playoff seeded team. I'm thinking somewhere in the 7-8 range. But if nothing else, the Hawks have been terrible for several years now, and they haven't been I don't think they've been watchable since the glory day. Yeah, the Hawks' glory days were the times that Mike Budenholzer led them to 60 win regular season with 4 All-Stars and all that cool stuff. And then you get swamped in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, LeBron just adds you to the list. Yep.
Yeah. Those are the glory days of ATL basketball. But I mean, this team, if nothing else, even if they're just a 7-8 playoff team, they're interesting. They're interesting to watch. I haven't watched a second of Hawks basketball since those old Millsap, George T, Jeff T, those fellas. I haven't watched a second. And this was an interesting game to watch. Trey Young, I think probably the most complimentary thing I could say about Trey Young is I think pretty much all the way up until I think late in the third quarter, he wasn't playing poorly. He was playing well. It just it didn't really stand out to me. And then I think once he hit his first 3 late in the third, that's kind of where the Hawks kind of went on a little spurt. And from the time he hit his first 3, the Clippers, they never quit battling. They were in the game for most of the rest of it, but they never could it felt like once Trey Young hit his first 3, the Hawks had control and they never let go of it. And it ended up carrying over. He had Kevin Huerter. He had 3 threes in the fourth quarter. This starting 5, is something to behold. I think the bench, I wasn't all that impressed with the bench. I think the bench only had about 11 points. So not the greatest of depth. And of course, they didn't have Cam Reddish last night. But the starting 5 is something to watch. And it's remarkably versatile when you look at, you have Trey Young, he can score from all over the floor. Then you have the two big guys. Collins was the 5 before Capella came in. And now you have Capella. Collins slides to the 4. Capella's, a traditional, center. does the work inside, play defense, block shots, rim run, all that good stuff. And John Collins is pretty versatile. He's got an inside game. He reminds me, I would call him the pogo stick. He's a slender fellow, but he's got bounce, 5 block shots last night. He's got 3-point range, so he can, he fits in the modern NBA where he can stretch you out to the floor. And then DeAndre Hunter, I think you talk about, I think if you look at the Hawks, you think of Trae Young, and then you probably think of Capella and Collins, probably one of those two guys second. I think DeAndre Hunter, it looks like it's a rival time. This guy's, averaging in the month of January about 20 points a game, shooting a high percentage, from everywhere. I think in January, he's above 50% from the floor. I think for the season, he's around 40% from deep. Free throw shooting is outstanding. And of course, he was regarded as a great two-way player coming out of college. That has not changed. It definitely looks like that I think he took some lumps in his rookie year, but there's definitely, you just look at the stat sheet. There's a lot of growth that we're seeing. I think the minutes are the same. About the shot attempts are the same, but the efficiency, is it's on another level right now. So he's done a fantastic job, and definitely an asset on the team. He looks probably at this point, looks like perhaps their second scorer that you can rely on. Of course, we know Collins can do stuff for you as well. But that's a wonderful starting five that they have right now. I think for me, I think they just need a little bit more time to play together in the jail, and it's probably gonna, I think you'd maybe look at next season before you probably put legit expectations on them for the playoffs. But for right now, if nothing else, they're interesting, and I enjoyed watching them. So that's all I was looking for them last night. They met the mail on that. The Clippers, of course, no Kawhi, no Paul George, but I thought the Clippers competed. They competed well. They were in this game until Trae Young hit that three. It felt like it was a nip and tuck game. I think Kawhi and Paul George combined are averaging, I think, just under 50 points a game. You take that away, and that's a significant loss. So I think, they struggled to shoot the ball for most of the night. They ended up shooting 40% from the floor. They weren't able to make enough shots. Reggie Jackson, when Reggie Jackson leads you in scoring, no disrespect to Reggie Jackson, but that's probably it's probably a giveaway that you might be in a little bit of trouble. But he had a nice game. He 20 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. It was a fine all around game. It's just, you're playing against Trae Young, so that's you're at a disadvantage. I thought Ibaka did okay. Kennard, you mentioned him. He looks like he fits on this team. Zubac 13 and 10, in 18 minutes. So I thought he had an impact. And not only was Kawhi and Paul George missing, but I didn't want to miss this point. Not only that, but Lou Williams missed his first 8 shots. So if I told you that you're going to be missing those two guys and Lou Williams isn't even going to bother to participate until late in the third, then that's another giveaway that the Clippers might be in trouble. But all in all, I think the takeaway from the Clippers is I think I was a little bit concerned about their depth coming into the season with the loss of Montrezl Harrell and JaMychal Green as well, maybe a couple other guys. I think they got better depth than I gave them credit for. Ibaka's a big add. Kennard, I think he fits on their team quite well. He's got a good shooting stroke. Terrence Mann, I think with nothing else, that was his first start this season. Came out there, competed. He Trae Young ended up being too much for him, but I think he had 4 steals in that game. So if nothing else, he proved that he belonged in the NBA. So good for him. And then they have Nick Batum on this roster too. Nicholas Batum, he of the whatever contract that he signed one time that ended up being a disaster. So their depth is, I probably don't like it like as much as I liked last year. And I don't think we may never see another, season where 2 guys look like 6th man of the year, like clear cut, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. We may never get that again. So we were spoiled of that. This is still a really good bench, and without 3 starters last night, I think it's reasonable to say if Paul George or Kawhi Leonard plays, I think it's a different result. But the Hawks did what they were supposed to do. This is probably a game they should have won, and they're interesting. So good for them.
Yeah, that was one of the big storylines of the offseason was how it felt like the Clippers had lost so much in the offseason, where the Lakers just got better, and some of the other teams were winning the offseason, quote unquote. Like the Clippers, they lost Harrell and lost some other guys, and it was like, well, what do they get back? I mean, Ibaka's kind of nice, I guess, but then you look at how they perform, and you're like, oh well. Okay, that's not that bad. I mean, yeah, you say you put Kawhi and Paul George back on the squad, and hey, easy win. No big deal. I mean, it's not that simple, but the idea withstands that they did prove that hey, this still plays this roster still has championship bones, and the demise of the Kawhi Paul George experiment has probably been a little overstated right now. So
I didn't even mention Marcus Morris, by the way. Didn't even mention him.
He's doing stuff. Zubac out there getting Tim Board. Batum had half a triple double, 5, 4, and 5. That's nice. That definitely put. But not bad for the Clippers. I'll say, for the Hawks. What's interesting about the Hawks is, there's kind of like the stages of a team in the NBA, but any sport really, that kind of gets from bad to good. You got to start drafting. You got to hit on a guy in the draft, and you start slowly building around that guy. You build your nucleus, and then there's a point where you shift gears, where you go, okay, we got enough young guys. We got a core. Let's bring in the free agents. Let's start bringing in the guys around them, and let's try to put it all in. Let's put our chips into the table and actually start going for it. And that's what the Hawks did this offseason. It started last year, and they traded for Capella, and now this offseason they got Gallinari. Don't forget Bogdanović. He's hurt. He has a fractured knee. He's out for a couple weeks, but he'll be back probably within a month or so. Rajon Rondo, a playoff Rondo, is just waiting in the stash. He ain't going. Regular season's kind of being
1, 2, 3 Cancun.
Yeah, he's just give him a call when it gets a little closer to that time. Chris Dunn. They really added a lot of veteran talent around Trae Young and Collins and some of these younger guys. So it's interesting to see how it's going to take off because they have had their growing pains. Drinky kind of alluded to it. The whole stink up with the offensive issues with Trae Young taking too many shots or bad shots. I know one of the complaints, they were taking a lot of shots early in the shot clock, and they were kind of settling, whereas Trae Young could have ran the offense a little more. I think when you look at the team, their whole success is going to be on Trae Young taking that next step because he's been the guy that's balled out on the bad team. I mean, he can score with anyone else in the league. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But can you start to be a little more selective? Can you start getting other guys involved? Can you start running the offense instead of being the offense? Those are the kind of things that a lot of guys, some people do and some people don't figure out. But the Hawks are going to kind of live and die on that. 9-8. It remains to be seen, because they've had some nice wins. They get some win. This win was pretty good, overall. They had a good win over the Nets. They beat the Sixers. They've also beat some bad teams. They beat the Timberwolves twice. They've beat Chicago. They've beat Detroit twice. So it's like, it's not like the most awe-inspiring record so far. But hey, 9-8 is good for 6 in the East. So apparently the East is back to just doing whatever they do. I guess we're splitting up all those wins. The Nets are picking up, and everyone else is. So good for them. But hey, they're in the mix right now, and I think they'll be one of these teams come playoff time. The classic, oh, you don't want to play them. That's probably what we're heading towards the Hawks, but they're probably still a year away. But hey, if your basis really is Young and Capella and DeAndre Hunter, and Collins, if that's your core, and then you have veterans around them, watch out. This thing starts really clicking. This team could be really good.